A Real Pain is one of my favorite Oscar-nominated films this year, and I realized that so much of the conversation about Kieran Culkin's performance in this film has been this idea that it's just another version of Roman Roy, which for the uninitiated is the character he played in Succession. But I actually think these two characters are fundamentally different, and Kieran's performance and understanding of these characters is one of the reasons why both of them work so well. See, both of these characters are rather charismatic, but where that charisma comes from is inherently different for both of them. Roman Roy in Succession desperately wants to be loved, and not only that, he wants to be liked. And when he can't get either of those things from people, what he will settle for is being seen. His character's humor and abrasiveness comes from that desperation. It's almost like a kid saying, please, please, please look at me. Whereas the character that we see him play in A Real Pain, Benji, his charisma and likability is almost an afterthought to him. The core dynamic between Benji and his cousin is this palpable jealousy, where Benji can walk into a room, immediately connect with people, and be both well-loved and well-liked. But that almost comes at the cost of real connection. Everybody seems to feel connected to Benji, but Benji himself is floating in this feeling of isolation. I think the part of the film particularly we see it is in this scene with the tour guide. Earlier on, we see Benji lash out at this tour guide with this extreme notion of everything he's doing wrong. It's a combative scene, it's uncomfortable for everyone in it, and eventually it diffuses and moves on. But later we see the tour guide was actually visibly moved by this experience. This conversation is actually something that will stick with him and make a lasting change on his life. But when he thanks Benji for it, Benji doesn't even remember having the conversation. And I think a lot of that is because throughout this film, we see him not understanding why people don't feel as deeply as he does, why everything seems to hurt for him in a way that it doesn't hurt for anyone else, and why other people are able to compartmentalize that pain and move on with their lives, whereas he seems to kind of relive these horrors and want to understand where they're coming from. And even someone who he viewed as close to him as a brother can't seem to get past the jealousy of that charming behavior in order to see how deeply Benji feels about everything. There are so many lines in this film that really stuck out to me, but there's a scene on a rooftop where Benji is talking about how we used to feel everything. And Jesse Eisenberg's character says, yeah, who would want to do that? And I think the key difference between Benji and Roman is that Benji feels everything so deeply to the point that he doesn't even realize how many people like him. And he's so charismatic that that ultimate likability continues to keep him from feeling like he has real connections. You see that pain reflected so well by Kieran, that ultimate strangers see that pain in him and discuss it. But we also see him mask it so well to a character that's close to him that that character can't even really comprehend the severity of where Benji's at. I think fundamentally these two characters that Kieran plays, Roman Roy in Succession and Benji in A Real Pain, do have these moments that feel similar. A sort of chaotic edge, a sharp sense of humor, and a willingness to say pretty much whatever's on their mind. But the underlying feeling of where that comes from, as well as the reason as to why that character is making those decisions, is inherently different. And I think that's what makes Kieran's performance in this so good and objectively Oscar-worthy. These two characters could feel the same, but an understanding of nuance in the script and a performance by Kieran that highlights both allows these two characters to be exactly who they were meant to be.